right. I think that is me going live. Let's see if I can get in. There's the chat room. Hey, say if you're in the chat. Sweet. Let me know. Is the video already up and live? Sweet. This is working really fast tonight. Okay. Well, it is 8 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Let me see how many people we have so far. Oh, it's not giving me that statistic yet. Try this again. Oh, no, I'm not in the chat. Okay, there we go. It just doesn't tell me how many viewers there are right now. Well, I know someone has already said hi in the chat room, so there's at least one person in there. Tonight's live stream in week 6 is going to be a bit shorter for a couple practical reasons, and also because of the way the place we're at in the course. So practically speaking, my voice is still a little hoarse. I was losing it last week when I was streaming. It almost disappeared entirely, and it's slowly coming back right now. And secondly, if today Mid was closed again due to snow, but because of all the ice, my driveway has turned into just a complete sheet of ice. And I was clearing the car off, and I've fallen now twice, and I've actually either fractured or broken my tailbone. So sitting for the live streams is also a challenge. So I'm going to try to keep tonight short. I did want to first talk about virtual machines just a little bit more. Last week we went through and we installed Ubuntu in VirtualBox together. Oh, someone's saying the feed is frozen. Can you hear me? Make sure that that's working before I go on. Okay, all right, so it is getting recorded at least. So yeah, we installed Ubuntu inside of a VM using VirtualBox, and your task list this week includes redoing that just to get the practice in. My team and I have installed Ubuntu so many times that we actually keep following following the outline. It's evolved over the years. As you saw last week when we updated it for Ubuntu 18, we actually removed some steps. The only way you're going to get better at installing Linux is by practicing. If you were to switch to a different distribution other than Ubuntu, it would all be more or less the same. Things would look different. You have actually used a command line interface to install another operating system, which is a pretty big deal. So you need more practice in that. As I was helping a few people with that this week, a couple questions came up that I wanted to cover for the benefit of everyone. The first was there was a particular computer that we weren't sure if it was 64-bit or if it was 32-bit. So the student gave me the model number of the computer, and I Googled for that model. It was an HP Slim desktop, and I just added the word virtualization. And ironically, it wasn't the top search results that were helpful. It was these screenshots. When I click on these and make them a bit larger, you'll see that if you can get into the BIOS, you actually have to enable virtualization technology. When your computer from HP ships with you, many models had that disabled by default. So we had to get into the BIOS, which was one more Google search away. I think I searched for HP BIOS. Maybe it was just HP BIOS. Yeah. How do I get to the BIOS on HP? It was one of the top results here. They tell you to turn a restart. When the display is blank, press the F10 key, and that should let you get into the BIOS. Once you're into the BIOS, then you can use the keyboard to navigate around to security and enable, and it's under system security, get down to virtualization technology and enable that. So that helped them get their computer working. I don't remember if we ended up finding that it worked with 64-bit or 32-bit. he might have had to switch to the 32-bit version of VirtualBox in Ubuntu, but this was the real stumbling block. And I've had this happen on laptops before, actually. It was actually more common for laptops to not have that enabled by default. So that was one question that came up. Second question that came up was that you couldn't connect to your web page once you had Apache installed, or you couldn't SSH to it. And one of the first things that we covered that I tried to emphasize, but maybe I didn't do it justice, was the network settings for one of these virtual machines that you create. If you right click and go to settings, if you move over to the networking area, like right here is the network option, you can have up to 4 network connections sent to one VM if you want. We only need 1, but it's the settings that... Oh, the mic has been staticky. Maybe it's my voice that sounds glitchy. I'm sorry if that's happening. Let me adjust the cable here. Okay, I'm going to cross my fingers that the recording is working at least. I'm sorry that my voice is cutting in and out. The network setting that was important was to make sure that it is attached to whatever your main network connection is, whether that's the wireless LAN or the Ethernet gigabit or 10100 connection that's actually plugged into your computer. But by default, this attached to is set to net, which is, I think, network address translation. If you take a networking class at mid, they'll explain what the different options are for a router firewall and how to have different router modes for having NAT or a bridged connection. For our purposes, the way I like to think about it is the NAT is making your computer act like a router. You have a router that connects you to your cable internet or your DSL or your satellite connection or even your wireless like LTE connection. When you turn on that router and it lets your computers on the network connect, it is sharing that one connection to a bunch of computers and creating a virtual, like a private network that your computers can talk on, but someone from the internet can't get in and use, or can't get in and attack your computers or get the information off of them. But all of you can go out to the internet just fine. So there's this like appearance to the outside world that all of your traffic from a bunch of different computers in your home network all comes from one IP address, one external IP address. Well, that's what's happening in NAT mode in VirtualBox. Is it's creating a private network that all the VMs can have their own private IP address, and they can get out to the internet through your computer's connection, but no one outside, not even your main computer, can connect to those virtual machines with an IP address like what your computer has. So the alternative that we need for this project to work, for you to be able to get to your website and to be able to SSH, is to use the bridged adapter mode. That's essentially making it appear as though you have a completely separate computer running on your network, just like your desktop or your laptop, right? You're installing a VM. It is actually going to get an IP address just like your computer on your network. So anyone on your private network, whether that's on your phone if you're on the same Wi-Fi network or a computer in the other room, can get to your VM and your website from that device. And so that'll actually be fun once you host a web page on your virtual machine and then try to connect to it from your phone. I think that's really where the power starts to become apparent here. So once you turn it to bridge mode, you will have to restart the VM for that change to take effect. In fact, you might not even be able to change the setting if it's on at the moment. But I know that without having to reinstall Ubuntu, you can come in, change this from NAT to bridged, and the next time the Ubuntu server starts, it'll get a new IP address. It'll look just like the IP address on your computer. If you go into like the Windows network settings or the Mac OS network settings, you'll see that those IP addresses now look the same, and you'll be able to go to that IP in your browser, see the web page, you'll be able to type it into PuTTY, or you'll be able to connect over the terminal to it. So that was another important question that I wanted to emphasize again this week. So as you are installing Ubuntu again, the thing that's different this week is I'm not covering it in the live stream. You're all on your own. You can use my outline and your notes, but I want you to actually find a way to document this process in a way that makes sense to you. Uh, and I think a lot of you are visual learners. So what I'd like you to do is take pictures, take screenshots along the way as you're setting it up so that you could refer to them in the future. So I created the Ubuntu VM time-lapse challenge. You are supposed to install Ubuntu again and get a website running on it. I have a list of milestones or places where you might want to pause and take a screenshot. And you can use like the snipping tool in Windows. There's keyboard shortcuts on the Mac to take screenshots. Or if you can't figure out how to take screenshots, you can even take pictures with your phone. That's fine by me. But along the way, take pictures. Put those pictures into a Google slideshow, a Google Slides presentation. And when you put the images like one per slide, then what I'd like you to do is in the speaker notes, write a description about what was happening in that step. Then by the end of the week, I need you to share that with me and submit the share URL to Moodle like we've been doing with a lot of these Google Slides and Google Doc assignments. So I hope that makes sense. Has anyone already installed Ubuntu for a second time? Okay, I'm getting a couple not yet, but as you do it, take some screenshots along the way. I will be okay if you forget. I know that we install Ubuntu really fast on our team now, and so you might forget to capture a step. What I kind of want is to get a general feel of what the overall flow is. So if you miss one or two, that's fine, but make sure you get some of the major milestones documented. Why am I having you practice create VMs so much? Well, it's because I expect you to do this for your upcoming projects. So the other thing I wanted to talk about in tonight's live stream is a preview of... Oh, you know what? Before I give you the preview, the other assignment that I should talk about is this week you're going to be doing independent learning again. That worked really well with Bootstrap. We're doing it with the command line. You've now read a chapter in the textbook and you've watched me install Ubuntu. And you saw me use some of the command line tools like pwd, cd, chown, sudo. I want you to do some more research on your own. And the internet has so many resources. I post like 4 or 5, maybe 6 resources that I think are valuable. I think 3 of them came from the textbook, and then a couple were ones that I've bookmarked over the years. I'd like you to try 1 or 2 of those. You have to do at least 3 hours of independent research, and then summarize what you learn in this journal. I ask you a couple questions. What resource did you use, obviously, but also what specific command line programs did you try out? What options or flags were you able to listen to those command line programs? A flag is like when we use the ls command to list files. By default, it gave you just the name of the files and folders in like 3 or 4 columns. If I wanted to ask for that in a more detailed list, I could dash after the ls space dash. You know, why am I doing this when I could show you? Let's show you. So I am, where am I at? pwd says that I am in /users, and then Kishba is my name on this computer. If I wanted to ls, it gives me these file and folder names. I might decide that I would rather see more information, and I don't want it in four columns here. I want one after another, so I can add a flag. So ls-la. Those are 2 different flags that are merged together. You could do just -l or just -a. I'm going to merge them together. What this is going to do is show them in this tall list view, 1 per line. And the A includes all the files, even the hidden ones. So in this home folder on my Mac, there's all these hidden files that I normally don't see when I look in the Finder. They start with this period. In both Linux and on the Mac OS, anything that starts with a period is hidden. You can see it on the command line, but you don't see it by default when you're opening a file or saving a file. It's hidden for you don't need to know about it. So those are flags. And then sometimes you actually just provide different options to a command. So I think we use something like nano to edit a file. That's the name of the program, but I could send it the name of a file, and Nano is going to either create that file or open it up. So look at the resources I shared in Moodle. If you don't like any of those, you could find your own. But I hope that you'll look at those. There's more than lynda.com too. There's some really good stuff out there. And I think all of them are free. I had a couple that weren't free that I thought I'd recommend, but in the end, only the ones that were free made the list. I want you to reflect on how a command line program could save you time as a web developer. So hopefully in your experimentation, you'll find something that you're like, hey, that's easier to run one command to do a bunch of things than to open up a program, find the file, whatever. I'm sure that there's something that you can find at the command line that will speed up your life. An example that I will share, I have figured out how to use the unzip command line tool to recursively unzip all of the folders, all the zip files that I download from Moodle. So I can actually go into an assignment and now download all of your student submissions. It's usually like a zip file, one big zip file that I open up, and then I have zip files from each one of you. So I paired together some commands that actually recursively unzip everything that it finds there. So not only does it unzip one student, unzips them all, which makes it a lot easier for me to grade. And then, of all those things that you've learned, tell me what your favorite thing is, the coolest thing that you did that you learned about. Just describe it. I think this is going to be fun. So that is your primary objective this week. You're going to spend the most time on the command line journal. I hope you have fun with it. The last topic for tonight's live stream is a look ahead, because the next weeks are going to be busy, and there's going to be a lot of independent work related to your midterm project. I can't believe we're already here. It's week 6. We're going to spend week 7, 8, and 9 working on different parts of this project. So let's just get into it. The scenario for your midterm project is that you have accepted a contract job to redesign a website for a local restaurant called Brandon's Bistro. The screenshot here on the right has been heavily redacted to protect the owners of this website, but I love eating out at restaurants, and I love local restaurants. However, they notoriously don't always have the best websites, and this is a website that I think my students have heard me talk about before when I taught face-to-face, and I decided that I wanted to actually have everyone try to build a restaurant website, because we probably all use restaurant websites, and we know that they could be improved. So that's the overall scenario. If you think back to the promises I made to you about what we were going to learn this semester, I see the midterm project as being a way of measuring your progress on the following items: being able to utilize and create virtual machines, compare and contrast and use the CSS and JavaScript frameworks that we've been talking about. Now, some of these we aren't going to be able to fully assess your knowledge of because we haven't finished, but this is going to be a good milestone to see how far you are along in learning about Bootstrap. You're going to evaluate and improve browser compatibility. And in this, I particularly mean responsive design and working on phones. You're going to apply principles of art and design, particularly some of the things that you've learned about by watching the Layout Land videos. And you're going to demonstrate understanding of a lot of terminology. So how are we going to do this? Well, here's our timeline. I hope you can see this. Let me see if I can bump up the size just a little bit here. Nope, that doesn't fit. We'll have to leave it about that. Can you see this on the screen? I can maybe shrink some of this a little bit. There's a question in the chat room. Are we allowed to help each other on the midterm? Or is it discouraged? For the midterm, let's talk about the timeline. I think I do want everyone to do their own independent work. I'm fine with people sharing screenshots like in Slack and getting some feedback along the way. But all the code definitely needs to be your own, that you've written yourself. Okay, so it's week 6 today. Next week, you're going to have a terminology quiz that you'll be taking. It's a little bit different than quizzes you've been taking so far, where it's multiple choice and take as many times as you want. It's not going to be like that. There are going to be multiple choice questions, but there are also going to be some open-ended questions that I'm going to be grading manually. So you might not be able to retake it over and over like you're used to. I'll try to make that very clear in the quiz. But it is open book, and you can take as long as you want to submit the answers. So if there are problems with the quiz, definitely stay in communication with me, and we can adjust as we need to. You're also going to be making a draft of the website next week. That's going to be a bulk of your work. Between week 7 and 8, like the weekend in between 7 and 8, I would like to schedule a one-on-one conference with each of you. I will put reminders in Slack. I will probably have a Google sign-up sheet posted inside of Moodle so that you can sign up for a time to meet with me when we'll use, we're not going to use Twitch. We'll probably use something like Zoom or Google Hangouts. If you took Web 1 with me online, you probably had a conference with me at some point in time, and I'd like to do that again. You might not have your draft done if we're doing it before the deadline for the draft, but you can still tell me what you're working on, and I'll have some questions to ask you about the midterm to get your thoughts on what you plan to do. I want to make sure that everyone is feeling comfortable before they're working on the final version of their project. Then there's the final draft that will be at the end of week 8. So right now we're in Tuesday of week 6. This weekend you'll see the project posted on Friday or Saturday, and then by the end of week 7, that Friday is your draft. Then the week after that, by the end of that week on Friday, your final draft will be due, and that's like the source code for your project. The other thing that you're going to have to do throughout week 8 as you're balancing tasks here is you're going to have to set up your own web server, which you've been doing already, so it should be easy, right? Then in week 9, at the early part of it, like right away, the first 2 or 3 days of week 9, I want everyone to give a presentation of their website. It would be preferred if that was a recorded video, but you could also make a slideshow with screenshots if you have to. But this is going to be you demonstrating your midterm project to the client. And at the same time, you're also going to explain how your website is being hosted. The goal is for you to actually type in the IP address and show your website running on the web server, from the web server. Bonus points if you can somehow capture yourself using it. Okay, I say bonus points. I don't mean literal extra credit. What I mean is like it'll be even cooler if you can demonstrate it from like a phone or something like that, so you can see that it's on a separate machine, not a file of folders on your computer. I think that would be really nice. And then the very last thing that we're going to have do at the end of week 9, maybe I should actually write end of week 9, will be a critique activity. We've done a critique in Web Design 1 where everyone posted their project and gave back. I'd like to do that again in Web Design 2. So everyone's going to be able to watch this video that you've recorded. You'll post it in the forum, and everyone will provide some feedback and some advice and give you hopefully a lot of compliments and praise on how your design turned out. I'm really looking forward to that activity. It worked really well last semester. So that's kind of the scary part of this. Let's get into the fun part. So you know that it's called Brandon's Bistro. What does the Brandon's Bistro serve? Well, it's a normal American restaurant. They're known for their grilled cheese. They got excellent chicken strips. They got tasty hot wings. Maybe they're spicy, whatever you want to focus on there. And of course, no restaurant complete without mozzarella sticks. Those are the 4 things that now I'm putting on my hat as the client. This is what the client says they want to focus on their website. The client is also telling you that they have these things. They already have a logo. They have some colors. They have a name. They have their contact info. They have an existing web page. They'll hand you a menu. Maybe it's PDF, maybe it's printed, and they'll give you a couple photos of the restaurant. That's what a client might give you in the real world, and so that's what I've told you the client has given you. Spoiler, though, I'm not giving you any of these things. You will be creating all of this information, but you have to have it on the web page because every restaurant website has these things. And we're going to be talking about accessibility next week. You might find that what you want to do is actually put the menu on, not up as a PDF, but as a real web page. The client is also having a conversation with you. You're talking to them, and they say, I really like Buffalo Wild Wings website. I like this El Burro, and I like Sugar Fire Pie. You quickly jot down those websites because you want to take a look at it. Like, think about why the client is telling you they like these websites. What do these websites have in common? So here's the first one. Let me get all of these opened real quick. So here's the first one. Here's El Bro, Mexican restaurant, Mexican street food. And this is Sugar Fire Pie. Just looking at these three web pages without having scrolled down, it's not that the restaurant serves this type of food. In fact, I didn't say that the client has pie. I didn't tell you that they have tacos or any Mexican street food. And they didn't even list burger as one of the things that they serve. What do you think? What can you tell from these three web pages is very apparent that might be something that the client likes? What do you feel is in common with these three web pages? They're using Bootstrap. You know, that's a good question. I can't say that all three of them use Bootstrap, but so Bootstrap also kind of fits into this theme. What are the characteristics of this website? And how is it different than the original existing website that I showed you? Yes, big pictures of food. You nailed it. Yes, yes. These websites make me want to eat. That is the whole purpose of a restaurant website. Actually, you know, let's take that way. One, they want you to eat their food, definitely. Two, what is the other thing that you want them to do when they visit your website? I'm gonna pause for this. I've only ever introduced this project in a face-to-face class. This is the first time. There's some pet peeve that I have about restaurant websites. If I'm visiting the website, I'm going there for like one reason and one reason alone. What could it be? Getting hungry just looking at these, by the way. Why do you personally go to a restaurant website? It's okay if you think you're cheating. Share the answer. Go for it. So look at the menu. Yeah, these big pictures help me look at the menu. Yes. Yeah, go for it. Tell me the answer. What's the answer? What is my big pet peeve about restaurant websites? I need like suspenseful music. Like we're so close. We're on the cusp of the answer. I can tell you that these websites kind of are okay about it. Not really. They could be better. Because you want to be able to contact them and order. Yes. The number one reason I go to a restaurant website, because it's usually during the time of day, it's like around lunch or dinner because I'm hungry, so I'm hoping they're open. I might want to look at their food, but you know what? 9 times out of 10, I already know what I want to order. What I really want is their freaking phone number so I can call them. You're absolutely right. So think about what's good about these web pages already. Think about what you like in restaurant websites and try to address all of these needs. The client is also telling you what they want on their nav bar. Oh, that was the other thing that's common between all these. They all have this top nav. I guess, you know, B-dubs is different now. They have a left nav, but there is a bar up at the top too. But generally speaking, all three of these have a top nav. And the client is even telling you what links they want. They want their hours, they want menu, and they want about and history as a section. Now, it don't have to be 3 pages. I'm not asking you to build a very big web page. These can all be one page. All this information can be on one page. However, I would like there to be a nav bar. So if it is a single page website, then what I'd like is when you click one of those links, it jumps you down to that part of the web page. So overall, the client is having this long, detailed conversation with you, and you're writing down in your notebook, you're snapping pictures, you're bookmarking websites. You ask them, well, so why do you want me to build this website? They tell you that they've got some problems that they want to solve. This is why they're going to pay you the cash money. They're getting complaints that people can't find their hours. There's this guy who calls all the time and says, you know what, I had a hard time finding your number. I don't know what your hours are. They want their new website to handle this. They want to reduce the number of times that people call and complain about their website. The other thing that they hear is that their website doesn't work on phones. They have a computer that they use in the restaurant, and it looks fine. It looks fine for them. And, you know, I use my iPad and it's fine, but a lot of other people are trying to access it on their phones, and they're complaining that they have to zoom in. So what you know from responsive design is going to help you with this. And then the other follow-up thing is they're getting complaints that it's hard to read the menu. I don't know what's wrong with it, they're saying, but you are looking at this and realizing that responsive design is going to help them, that you want to focus on food, and you want to make sure that the important information up at the top of the website. So you don't have to go hunting for hours or phone numbers. So let me take off my client hat and put on my instructor hat. I'm back to normal. The requirements for this project are that you must use Bootstrap 4 to create this web page or web pages. You must implement a grid design, which we've touched on. We've talked about using the Bootstrap grid. There's going to be more in the semester as we watch more Layout Land about grid in general. But for this project, you have to use the Bootstrap grid to do some design. There will be more details in the rubric that I post this weekend about that. The big requirement, and the reason you're using Bootstrap 4, is that the website that you design has to be responsive. Specifically, I am requiring that as I resize the web page to become the mobile size, that you either change the size of content or you reorder content when you're on the mobile size versus the desktop sizes. So it'll be important that you have a very visible, clear example of resizing and reordering content. You must, in your project, you have to find a way to address these client requests and the problems that they outline. That will be part of your presentation as you explain how you've taken their ideas into consideration, how you're solving the problems that they're hiring you to solve. And finally, you have to run this website yourself on a web server. You don't have to go buy one. You just set one up on a VM on your computer, and that's where you're going to demonstrate it from. So that is a preview of the midterm project. Let me actually call this preview. I will post this in Moodle as well with the live stream recording. Are there any questions that you'd like me to answer now? Oh, I missed one. Someone wanted to know if they could use Shutterstock. Shutterstock is a website that lets you buy images. I don't really want to encourage anyone to have to buy images. So what I'll tell you is Unsplash is a great place to get photos. If I search for Unsplash, all these photos are free for you to use. You are asked to provide credit, and I think that's the right thing to do. So maybe in a caption or alt text, you could say where the photos came from. Let's search for mozzarella sticks. Okay, maybe they don't have mozzarella sticks. Maybe I'll search for mozzarella. Any photos of mozzarella? Oh, looks like there's pizza. I'm sure that there's a way to find some food photos that are appropriate. What else did we say? Hot wings? Real birds. Okay, well, I am not having luck, but I am sure that you can find some photos. Food wings. Man, I really thought I knew what I was doing searching in Unsplash. What I'll tell you is it's okay for you to find free stock photos. Just make sure that you have permission to use them and credit where they came from. I think that's important for us as professionals. So Unsplash is a good resource. You mentioned Shutterstock. If they have a free level, that would be fine to use as well. Where is my outline? There we go. You are required to use Bootstrap, but you know, someone mentioned that all three of those websites that I linked to looked like Bootstrap. You know, they kind of had some similar feel, but they did look different than Bootstrap. What I'll caution you on is Jen Simmons in particular in the Layout Land videos just grills web designers for making all the websites look the same because we're using the Bootstrap templates. There is a way for you to apply Bootstrap and then take advantage of your own knowledge of CSS, add your own class names, your own IDs, and then write your own CSS that instead of figuring out how to lay out on a grid, you're adding just a couple classes that change color, size, background color, and fonts. Remember, you can use Google Fonts to get fonts as well. I think that's one thing that all these three sites have in common. They don't use just the plain Bootstrap font or the plain default font. They find a way to find an appropriate font that they can use for their brand. The logo thing, yes, thank you for asking about that. You are meant to design your own logo. Now, you don't have to make something in Photoshop. I've had students use CSS and Google Fonts or some other creative ways to make a simple logo using code. I have had people who are in the art and graphic design program actually use Photoshop or Illustrator to make a logo. Remember, the name of this project, this restaurant, is Brandon's Bistro. I had a student once who actually drew an avatar of me in Illustrator and made it look like I was a chef, and that was kind of fun. So if you're handy with Illustrator or Photoshop, this is your time to shine well. But you can also just use typography to design a logo. All the best logos are typography, anyways, in my humble opinion. So you're in charge of uh, figuring out what you want it to look like, figure out how to use Bootstrap to make it, and then how to host it too with Ubuntu. And I'm kind of curious while we're talking, we have a few more minutes, what part of this midterm seems the most stressful? As you look at this timeline for the next 3 weeks of work, we're going to be taking a quiz. We're going to be building a web page with Bootstrap. You're going to be setting up your own server. You're going to be making a presentation. Which of those seem particularly stressful? The quiz. Okay. Well, remember, the quiz is a completely open book, and a lot of some of the questions are going to be based on quizzes you've already taken, and then some of the questions are literally things that I've tried to say in more than one live stream that I want to make sure you remember going forward. So I hope it won't be as stressful as you might be fearing right now. So my voice is about to run out. Do you have any questions for me that I can answer about the command line or the midterm? I hope you all have been staying warm and driving safely. We've had an unprecedented number of closures at mid this semester. Okay, no questions. So have a great night and a great week. I look forward to seeing what resources you find helpful for the command line. I hope that I've ignited at least a curiosity in how to use the command line to do things. I think, looking back, if any of you contact me in like 10 years, I'd love to hear if you started using command line tools more and more as a result of playing around with them in this class. That would be kind of cool. So be warm, and I'll see you next week.